Hi folks, so I wanted to talk to you about squatting today. So squatting is a fundamental functional movement. We have to do it in our day-to-day lives, yet so many people are doing their squats poorly. So squatting is when you sit and stand from a chair. So if you imagine there was a chair behind you and you take a seat, normally you wouldn't really think about it. However, when you ask people to do a squat without a chair behind them, that's when you start to see all sorts of things go wrong. So common things that go wrong are these. So you sit and the knees will come forward, which you can't see from that side, so I'll do it this way. So the knees will come forward and the torso drops down. So you'll get that. Also get this, knees coming in as I sit down, and occasionally knees going out as you sit, or you might get this or this, and I think those are the main things that you'd see when people are squatting and there's something that's not quite right happening. So those kind of things happen for different reasons. Sometimes it's to do with lack of strength or stability and control coming from the core. Quite often there's not enough control in the glutes, or there's more strength in one glute than the other, or there's more strength in one side than the other. Basically, there's an imbalance occurring, so that's why there's that shift occurring, or if there's the knees caving in. So the knees caving in is very common, and this is because there's a lack of strength in the outside of the hips, so the abductors, so the muscles just around the outside of your bum. This should be what happens, but this happens because the muscles there aren't able to pull the hips laterally, so they can't rotate them outwards. A normal squat you would go for would be about having your feet a little bit, so about just a little bit wider than hip width, and as you sit down, what should happen is you get this hinging motion. So your lower back should not be involved, it should just remain flat. So you get this hinge, so it's from the hips. It's that bending motion. So if you can see, that's just moving from the hips there. I push my bum back, hinge forward, back stays neutral, I haven't moved my back at all. And then I'm going to bend my knees, but I'm not going to let my knees come forward. I'm just going to keep them where they are and keep pushing that bum back. So it's about pushing that bum back and then sitting the bum down. And then as I come up, I'm squeezing my butt. So here and down, squeezing the butt to come back up. So the goal really is using your glutes to help you come back up out of the squat. So you push through your heels, squeeze your butt, lift yourself up. Just watch where your knees are doing. So if you find that you're a bit uncomfortable with your where your feet are, you can turn your feet out slightly outwards, but your knees have to go in the same direction. So as long as your knees and toes go in the same direction, so for example here, that's okay. Here, as long as my knees are going with my toes, and then back to standard, so I'm a bit more forward in this position. To be honest, this one's not the most comfortable position. I prefer having my feet a little bit out if I'm going a bit wider, and then my knees go out with it. So everyone's hip structure is going to be slightly different, so you need to find what's comfortable for you. There's no hard and fast rule about having to have your feet pointing forward and coming down, because that may not be right in terms of how your hips are designed. So when you're going wide, it's really hard to go wide and have your feet forward and drop down. I find it's not as comfortable, whereas if my feet are turned out, I can drop down quite easily and push up and engage my glutes better. So glutes are really important when it comes to squatting. If you haven't got a strength in your glutes because you spend a lot of time sitting on your butt all day, then you may have forgotten how to use your glutes. So a lot of people, I find, when they go and sit down, they can get about this low and then they start to lose control and it will just drop because they can't control the depth and the lowering down and also the rising. So it'll be like a quick push or a flop down onto the chair. So you want to be able to develop that control, and that takes time, building up the strength in your glutes. But you've got to remember, if you are having issues with your knees dropping in, you need to strengthen that whole the whole hip and pelvic complex, which means that you need to strengthen those muscles around your pelvis and just create a little bit more balance so everything works more evenly.